All right, I'm going to go ahead and get this meeting started. So welcome to the June 4th budget workshop for the Cabarrus County Commissioners. Before we get started, I am going to ask Commissioner Pittman if he doesn't mind starting us out with an invocation.
There we go. Let's pray. Almighty God, our Father, thank you for the gift of life and all the many blessings you give us besides. And Lord, we know that there are those who are suffering who can't enjoy life because of so many things going wrong with them. We have many of them on our minds right now. We couldn't go through the whole list. We'd be here all night. But Lord, we do lift them up to you and pray that you would give them strength for healing. Lord, we pray that you would bless those who have lost loved ones with your comfort and peace. And Lord, we pray that you would guide and direct us here tonight. Help us to do what we can to make life better for those in our community. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much. So I will call this meeting to order. And Commissioners, I have had conversation with Sean today, and we have decided to have Raj start us off with this meeting. So he is going to kind of do a budget review so that we can kind of break the ice a little bit regarding this budget discussion. I do want you guys to feel comfortable speaking up. This is a discussion. We do need to talk about these things, and so I want you to feel open and be able to say the things that are on your mind tonight. So Raj, if you'll take it away.
All right. Good afternoon. Back at the May 19th board meeting, County Manager presented the recommended budget, and he read his budget message to you and also provided you some additional information there. What I'm going to try to do today is present the numbers to you and also show you a history of where we were at the retreat versus the April budget workshop and where we are now with the recommended budget, and show the differences. And I got a few additional items also I can share with you. Our budget process, just so everyone's aware, started back in mid-November with us doing our budget training and kickoff for our departments. In mid-December, their continuation budgets were due back to us. In January, we opened it up for expansion items, and those were due back in 2 weeks in January. In February, we had the budget retreat. In March, we met with every department and went through their budget requests. We have what we call budget conferences, so we meet with every department that has a budget. And the leadership team, along with the budget team, meets with them, goes through their entire budget. In April, we had our budget workshop where we had our educational partners present. And then we had our public hearing earlier this week, and now we have our second budget workshop. So let me go through the recommended budget with you. Just a disclaimer, all the figures here could change, depends on what you guys decide. Any such adjustments to the recommended budget will be shown as a technical adjustment to the final budget. So from a revenue standpoint, our largest source is property taxes. The adopted budget last year was $269 million. The recommended budget is $280 million, $10.7 million increase there. Sales tax, we had a slight increase. We're kind of being cautious on sales tax because of unknown circumstances as far as what will happen. Intergovernmental, we had a slight increase there, permits and fees. Sales and services, the big difference there is coming from our deputy reimbursements and also ambulance fees. The other financial sources went up by 4.8 million. 2.4 of that is related to our economic incentive grants. We have money set aside in our fund balance. Whenever we collect the money, what is owed to the economic incentive vendors that were provided those incentives, that money gets set aside in a fund balance account. So we're using a portion of that fund balance to take care of what's going to need it for next year's payment.
Oh, there we go. I was just going to say too, just for folks, I'm sure all the commissioners are aware of this, but we're talking primarily about the general fund here, so.
Yes, this is just general
If
fund.
you're wondering where the $500+ million number is, this is just the general fund that we're talking about right now.
This is the primary fund where most of the expenses get taken care of for the operations. The other 2.4 million that make up the 4.8 is a self-insurance fund balance transfer to the general fund. It's a one-time thing. They have an excess fund balance there. We're using that to take care of one-time needs like deferred maintenance and so forth, and I'll cover that in the expenditure section. So that's the revenue part of it. On the expense side, we have personnel services, that's mainly salaries. We have employee benefits, that includes health insurance, retirement, social security, and all the other fringe benefits that have to be paid. We have supplies, other services and charges. You see it going up by $1.9 million. A big part of that is last year we had used a portion of that to do deferred maintenance. One time again, this had to do with our insurance and bonds self-insurance fund. So instead of sending it to that fund, we ended up sending it to the CIF fund where they could use it for deferred maintenance. So that's coming back into the budget for FY26. Contributions to other funds, the big part of the $11 million there is what we're doing for our educational partners. About 10.2 million of that amount is going to the educational partners increase. Capital outlay has to do with vehicle purchases primarily, and the replacement vehicle requests dropped considerably this past year. Plus, we're not adding any new vehicles. So as you can see on the expenditure, and again, we have to have a balanced budget, so revenues must equal expenses. Let's go off. Oh, the light's not on again. Can you take it to the next slide? Okay. One back. Okay, one forward, sorry. Okay. So what this is showing you is you saw there was an increase in the salaries and benefits. The salary portion of it grew by $1.8 million. It grew a little bit more than that, but this year we're also budgeting what we call lap salary. So we're doing a 1.25% lap, so we're not budgeting 100% of the salary since we have a lot of salaries left at the end. So this year, we're actually building that into the budget. So we have $1,250,000 there of that. And the other piece that is also being reduced this year is our salary market study. And that was $1 million. See, overtime, we have Social Security. The big one there will be our health insurance. Last year, we had no increase. This year, we have that increase plus what we anticipate we will need in FY26. The other big increase there is retirement, that we don't have any control over. That comes from the state. We get a retirement contribution rate that they tell us what we would need to submit to them. So those are the major pieces of the salary and benefit portion of the previous slide I showed you. So here's the recap, revenues versus expenditure. We are currently balanced in our recommended budget. Looking back at the budget process and where we've been, so this is organized in the same manner as the previous slides. On the revenue side, you can see where we were with the revenues at the retreat in February, at the budget workshop in April, and then the recommended budget now. And I've kind of spelled out the major changes on the bottom there. Our property tax and valuations were adjusted by our tax office in April and May. That added $4.9 million. The committed fund balance, I mentioned the economic incentive grants fund balance that we're using to pay the economic incentive grants, $4 million there. And also the contribution from the internal service fund, one-time money from our workers' comp. And that's $2.4 million. Those are the primary reasons our budget went up on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, again, I'm showing you where we were at the retreat, the budget workshop, and the recommended budget. As you can see, between the retreat and the budget workshop, it did go up by $3.8 million. There's a combination of things resulting there. We had the personnel services budget. I mentioned the lapse being budgeted, $1.25 million. That was a reduction. And then the salary market study money of $1 million. That was altogether that's $2.2 million. Also on the personnel services, we did end up doing reclassifications for 24 positions that were requested by departments. The details of those are in the budget book. If you look under personnel, you'll see the list of our positions that are being adjusted there. That was $242,000. Net adjustment as part of the department budget conferences and leadership team review. So after we met with the departments, we had some reductions already done. When Sean came on board, we spent 2 days going through every budget with him and came up with additional. And again, these reductions or adjustments were based on, we had asked the departments, if you had to do a 5% cut, what would you be willing to give up? And that's what most of those are representative of. The next item there on the bottom on the major adjustments, the educational partners I had mentioned earlier. Initially, we had budgeted 4.5%. We ended up adjusting that to a 10% increase. And so we ended up adding $6.1 million to the budget for the educational partners. And the very last one is a contribution to the Community Investment Fund. I mentioned earlier the money from the workers' comp one-time money, $2.4 million. That is being transferred this year to the Community Investment Fund to take care of deferred maintenance. So we're all using it for one-time items.
I'm going to ask a question, if you don't mind. So we have historically, and you've been here for a while, right? So we've historically budgeted for a 4.5% increase to the school system every year. Is that right? Is that normally?
Some years we have upped it to 5% or so, but
But
typically.
that's what we budgeted.
Yeah, that's what we budget. That's
But
correct.
payout for that over the last 5 years has been
A lot higher.
substantially more.
Yes.
Is there a reason specifically why that we opted to do 4.5 or 5% versus the 10 or 12% that ended up being what we gave every time?
So some years it didn't go that high. So it's a mix. Lately, the last few years, we have seen a significant increase, but I think traditionally it hasn't been as high.
I just didn't know if there was a specific reason why we didn't budget enough every time? Like if we saw the changes happening?
I basically continued what my predecessor was doing.
Okay,
And kept that on the 5-year plan.
okay, all right, thank you. Do y'all have any questions too? I didn't want to, okay.
So that takes care of the expenditure side. Again, on the recap, at the retreat, we were $5.8 million upside down. At the April workshop, we're actually ahead by $815,000, and now we're at a balanced budget. I know this is a little small, but this is the 5-year plan. As you can see, this year we're balanced. Next year, we're at a $10.8 million deficit. The following year, $21.2 million. The year after that, $33 million. And the year after that, $47 million. Again, all of this is based on assumptions we built into the 5-year plan, like the 4.5% for education, 6% for personnel services. And we have similar kind of things on the revenue side, 2% for property tax, 1% for sales tax, and so forth. So those assumptions, again, you can find all of that in the budget book. There's a page that shows you the assumptions that are being used. That just gives you an idea of how it looks at the 57.6 cents tax rate. Sure.
I don't know, there it is. On that 5-year plan, you just stated that next year, over the 5 years, you only projected a 4.5% for the school,
That's correct.
rather than 10% that we're doing? Okay. Since you underestimated it in the past, and now we're catching up now, should that plan reflect a higher percentage there to be more accurate?
Yeah, we discussed it with Sean and decided to keep it at that. I'll let Sean kind of address that.
Yeah, so in conversations with Dr. Kapicki and Mr. Penn, the CFO for the school system, we had talked about that growth there, and that this year may be the last for a little while of needing double-digit growth, and that as we get into the back half of the summer, we can discuss what that kind of long-term financial plan looks like for them and make sure we're appropriately accounting for the growth that they expect. And so once we get through this cycle, definitely have plans to do some deep dives with the school systems to understand what that 5-year plan looks like for them, so that we can appropriately account for a growth rate that makes sense and make sure we're not constantly trying to find extra money that we're not accounting for in our 5-year plan.
All right, yeah, I just don't want to be chasing the school board
Yep.
every year.
Totally agree.
Okay.
Yep.
When we discussed this last time, and Dr. Kapicki is here, we were looking at a 10-year plan, because in 5 years, they're out of elementary school seats, and in 10 years, they're out of high school seats. That's why they needed the first elementary school now, and then we were going to do an elementary school and high school. They were going to stagger it. So, I mean, that 10-year projection is already there. Those kids are coming. So I understand that we're going to look at it, but that information is already here, and we already have that information.
So I haven't seen the 10-year like growth rate for operational costs yet, and that might just be from being new. So, but if that exists, then I would happily review that. And we did have plenty of discussions internally about, for our 5-year plan, should we go ahead and bump that up? And I do think it's right to factor that in, you know, immediately for next year. So I would expect these to change slightly when we figure out what that right number is. But absolutely want to make sure we're being more forward-looking on that front and not feeling like we're having to play catch-up each year when we're budgeting a certain growth rate and then being asked for a different growth rate each time, so.
Commissioner Pittman?
Thank you. Just going back a minute, I should have asked this earlier, but I just want to clarify for my own conscience. The employee benefits part, I want to make sure, it's not going to make a lot of difference in this whole big budget, but I know on my check stubs, it shows, I believe, Social Security payments, which is expected. No federal taxes, so I'm taking out and doing estimated taxes on that. But I want to make sure on like the, I know I'm not getting insurance, but on retirement, are y'all not doing anything on retirement for me, are you?
I'm not sure if they do retirement on you or not.
Well, I had asked early on for y'all not to do any of that, just the basic salary and whatever you have to do about taxes on that, Social Security, whatever, be it, no other benefits for me. So I'll just make sure you know that and make sure you don't.
Okay.
Okay,
We'll double check on that for sure.
okay.
Any other questions for Raj?
The only other thing I have, also, just want to give you some background. I know there was some discussion at the last board meeting, not the work session, but at the board meeting about possibly looking at local teacher supplement. So we had initially, I think Sean had provided you initially a table like this, but it had the $1.9 million estimate. This is based on the most recent numbers I got from Cabarrus County Schools, and wanted to just put a more accurate number in there. So it's $1.9 million, $1,975,000 for a 1%. And then if we give Cabarrus County Schools that amount, then we also have to give an equivalent amount to Kannapolis City Schools, the charter schools. So the total impact would be about just under $2.4 million if you do a 1%. One other thing on the bottom, if you look at the note, this does not provide enough funding for an equal % increase to the local teacher supplement for Kannapolis City Schools. If you look at the number there, the 225,000, that would provide maybe approximately 0.5% for them. If we try to do a full % it would cost us an additional almost $1.9 million for Cabarrus County Schools, because their percentage, their ADM, per ADM amount would go up, and so we would have to match that. So every time you give money to any one of the school districts, all the other school districts have to have the equal amount coming to them per ADM. So the main one that we would be focused on is Kannapolis City Schools. Question was asked today, okay, well, why can't we just give them $225,000 more? If we do that, we would have to give Cabarrus County Schools an additional $1.9 million. So that's why we can't easily do that. One other thing that was asked at the last work session was, and I think there's been some discussion on it, what was the educational partners' request? I know this is a little small on the screen there, but Cabarrus County Schools had asked for 12.69%. Our current recommended budget has a 10% increase for them. Kannapolis City Schools had asked for 8.57%. Our budget currently has 8.38%, so they almost got everything they asked for. The charter schools kind of just falls through. And then we have Rowan Cabarrus Community College. They asked for $319,000, a 6.96%. We're able to fund all of that. Just to put that into perspective of what we've done with the educational partners. That was all my slides. I'll be.
Quick question.
Sure.
Just want to understand, in their recommendation or their request on their 12.69% increase, they didn't ask for an increase on supplements at all, did they?
They did not ask for supplement increase.
They asked that money for other reasons?
Yes.
Any other questions? Any other questions for Raj specifically that you guys have? Real quick, I do want to ask a question about, at the bottom of, and I can't remember what slide it was, I'm so sorry. It was the economic incentive grants at the very bottom, and it said like 2-point-something million.
2.4 million?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you, so I know that the word incentive is in there, and can you clarify what that economic incentive grant and that 2.4 million, can you clarify how, like
So
what that's for?
For example, we have, Eli Lilly is the big company that we have right now. So when they came on board, there was an agreement made with them that for the next, I forget how many years, but we would be paying them back. They pay us the taxes up front, and then when they qualify with everything they're supposed to do, we start paying them back 85% for so many years. So we'll collect 100%, and we pay them 85% of that back for them investing in our community, providing jobs, and so forth.
So that 2.4 million, we had to take that out of
It was collected and we put it aside to pay this in fund balance. So it was set aside, so right now what we're doing is we're taking it out of fund balance, not from any of our new revenue, taking it from fund balance, and we'll be using it to pay the incentive grant.
Okay,
So we collect money usually a year to 3 years before the payouts actually start happening. So we've started putting that money aside in order to pay these incentives.
okay.
So that's Eli Lilly's tax dollars that you set aside that you're paying back to.
Well, it's Eli Lilly and whoever else we, yeah,
But you set those
Yeah.
aside so you can pay them their money back.
yes. We get to keep 15% and pay the 85 back.
Any other questions for Raj? Okay, thank you
All right,
for
thank you.
presenting that, I appreciate it. Well, I am going to, like I said, this is a discussion, this is a budget discussion. So I do want everybody to feel free to open up and have conversation about this budget book, what your concerns are, and where we can come to some agreement so that at least we have some idea of what we do agree on. I do know that in conversation today, Sean and I had talked about that the staff would like to have at least some kind of consensus from us about the things that we do agree on, so that they can go ahead and start that, whatever that process would look like moving forward with the budget for this year.
For drafting the budget ordinance for Rash's team, so as close to consensus as we can get on certain items, it would be helpful to start drafting that prior to the 16th so that we have all of that documentation together.
Okay. Well, I'm going to open the floor up for you guys. So I know that there's been some discussion about whether or not we could afford to do a supplement increase for teachers. I know that that's been a big discussion. If anybody would like to start that. Don't everybody talk at once. All right, Commissioner Pittman.
I'll just say that since it was not requested, we shouldn't do it. No point in doing something that hadn't been requested.
Okay, any other comments on that?
I think we should fund the 1%. They didn't ask for it, but they need it. Mecklenburg County's at a 19%. They're gonna go right down the road to Mecklenburg County. Since 2014, we have increased them every year. Every time the state goes up, we increase it. They're already not paid enough. We can do it. It is there. And I'll just go ahead and tell you what my plan is. I want to cut the $2 million engineered drawings for the animal shelter, because that's $2 million. And in 2 years, it's going to be $15 to $17 million to build it. And with that $2 million, I would like to fund the $585,000 for the 2 ambulances that were cut. I would like to fund the $139,830 for the 2 sheriff's officers' cars that were cut. That includes the equipment and installation of the equipment. And that leaves us with $1.275 million left out of that $2 million. And so I would like to borrow $799,830 from the Community Investment Fund. And therefore, I can fund the whole 1% teacher supplement, and I can fully fund the $225,000 from the EDC that was took away from them. That's exactly where I'm at on that, and I don't plan on budging. That's where I'm at. That's the same motion that I plan on making at the budget meeting. That's as honest and open and transparent as I can be.
No, and that's fine. That's
So-
exactly what we need to talk about. So
Yeah.
the $2 million for the animal shelter, I'm glad you brought that up. So, one of the things I've been thinking about is the $2 million that the school system actually had requested for the operations budget that they would like to have. So I think honestly that would be a better use of that $2 million is to give the school system what they requested regarding their operational costs. I want to understand from you, I know that you're saying we're going to, borrow it from one account, but how would we feasibly do this moving forward every year? So if the state increased the teacher pay, which I know that's a discussion that they're talking about, They're automatically going to get an increase in supplement as well, since it is a percentage of whatever their pay is. And we have no idea how much that's going to be. So how would we be able to fund that reasonably without increasing property taxes?
That's the spot we're in. You're gonna have to fund it, or you're not. I'm choosing to fund it. I mean, I'm not saying that snarkily, or like, we have a choice. I mean, but the money has to come from somewhere.
Right.
And so, but I also like, these vehicle purchases that were cut, those vehicle purchases are on a schedule. They replace these on a schedule, like the ambulances, they have to be reboxed. You can only rebox them for a certain amount of times before you put stress fractures in places. It's just not safe. So they're going to need these vehicles. One way that happened here in Cabarrus County before, they had to purchase, I think it was 18 or 20-plus cop cars at one time because we continued to cut and cut and cut. Like, these are things that they still need. The only thing that wouldn't be a one-time is that 1% teacher supplement. We will have to find a way in the budget next year to make up that 1% somewhere. The rest of those, it's a one-time, and as the money comes in from the finished products, the courthouse, the EMS station, all those things like that, then when that money's put back, that's where we put it back into the community investment fund, because we don't want to make a habit out of pulling from that. But with where we're at, this allows us to keep it at Sean's recommended budget. We could drop it. That was a thought. We could take that $2 million out, and if you drop the tax rate, it only drops to 57.185. And what that equals out to an average citizen is about $20 a year. So in my opinion, could we drop it to that and keep the tax rate the same? Yeah. Or I could get the 2 ambulances, I could get the 2 sheriff's cars, we can give the teachers. To me, that's a better investment. And so that's how I'm looking at that, is through that lens.
So I will say that, obviously I was on the school board prior to this, so I have a knowledge of what the school systems have needed. And I hear what you're saying regarding teachers not being paid enough. And certainly, if we had all of the money to be able to pay them most likely what they are due, I would love to be able to do that. But the bottom line is, there are teachers that are leaving CMS and coming to Cabarrus County. And CMS has 46% higher teacher supplements than I think anybody else in the state. And so there's obviously more reason that teachers are either leaving Cabarrus County or leaving Mecklenburg to come here. And it's not just about the money. And in talking with folks in the community, quite honestly, they don't want us to be compared to Mecklenburg because they don't want us to be Mecklenburg. And so I think using what Mecklenburg does and using that, in my opinion, as an example for what we should be doing, most people don't want that because that's not the environment that they want to create in Cabarrus County, is a Mecklenburg type.
And I get that, but so it's not okay to compare Cabarrus County to Mecklenburg for teacher supplements, but it's okay to compare for tax rates when we're running for office. Like, you either compare us or you don't. But they're already losing 60, the Cabarrus County Schools is already not filling 60 of those teacher positions. They're going to let them go through attrition. Thank you, by the way, for helping us try to trim the budget. But, so they're already 60 down. Like, we can't afford to lose any more. So for me, the 1%, that's an investment I'm willing to make. I'm willing to make that investment at the 1%. And I appreciate Sean giving us, I think it was 1.75, 0.5. I appreciate you breaking it down, but for me, I'm at the 1 because that's, to me, that's what's deserving. And
But there is a valid struggle here that the school board didn't ask for it. So at some point, they didn't think that 1% supplement was a top priority in their budget, and they had other numbers that we are denying them of.
And I get that.
I'm just,
yeah,
that's the struggle.
But if you watch the school board meeting, and I've gotten already several emails from school board members at the meetings and in public, well, we want the county to fund the schools, we want the county to fund the supplements. Well, they didn't ask for it. So do you want it or do you not? I mean, Dr. Kopicki's here. We can ask him to come up here and figure out why the school board didn't ask for it, not to put you on the spot. But we here in public, we've all gotten the emails. All of us have gotten the emails from the teachers, from the public. So if that's on the school board, it absolutely is. But don't sit at your school board meeting and put it on the county commissioners when you didn't ask for it. Because I'm sitting here saying I'm willing to fund it. So I'm willing to bring Dr. Kopicki up here and let's find out why the school board didn't ask for it. I mean,
Yeah. And
not to put you in a spot, but you're here. I mean,
do you feel comfortable coming up? And if we have questions to ask you, if not, that's okay. It's okay. This is our discussion, but,
and I'm only asking because if they truly don't want it, let's not do it. But now we're in a spot of they didn't ask for it, but they did privately, so
well, the other thing that, and this was kind of what, in my mind, of what I was thinking about it, you know, even if we did ask for an increase in supplement, it's not going to do anybody any good if we have to raise the property taxes, because then those teachers are going to have to spend whatever we just increased on their taxes for the next year. And so really, in all reality, it might not be an increase. for
we're
them.
already at a $10 million deficit
I
next year.
know.
Already. So it
And I have
doesn't
every-
look good. But by giving them the 1% this year, it won't affect the tax rate this year. And I
This
did
year.
say it will, we'll have to find the money next year. It will absolutely affect it next year, but
Yeah, we're not gonna, I'll tell you right now, I'm not voting for any tax raise this year. I mean, I'm gonna go on record for that right now.
Well, and I would like to say that I appreciate you saying that, because I don't know a doggone thing about you. I hadn't really gotten a conversation with you and had time to talk to you, but I 100% agree with you in that statement. I refuse to raise taxes.
I do too.
I was not elected to raise taxes. I was here to support the taxpayers. And so whatever it is that we need to do, we have to do it within a certain mean of what we can afford without raising the property tax rate. That's just my personal opinion on it. So I thank you for saying that, since we haven't had an opportunity to have conversation about it. I do. Dr. Kopicki, I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, my friend. But if you guys, if you could open up a little bit and just enlighten us to the conversations that you've had with our board, with our school board, about why they decided to prioritize the budget this year the way that they did.
So with no notes in front of me.
That's okay, you don't need no notes, you got this.
So what I would say is this, I appreciate all of you on the county commission advocating for our teachers and trying to support them and increase their raises. I would never say no to anything that would raise the pay of teachers across our county. I think you all know that I'm preaching the thing that I hear, and I know you all hear. People move here because of the school system. And we're very fortunate to have a great school system, and the county commissioners have helped to build that great school system. So I appreciate that. So I'm not going to sit here and say, no, I don't want the money for a supplemental increase. It was not something that I recall, and I will not put my board on the spot, that I recall having discussions with my board about. The county did raise a supplement, has raised a supplement over the last couple of years. It's currently at 13%. Again, I would never say don't raise it. I think our teachers, if you could raise it 3 cents, 4 cents, 5 cents, whatever, you know, I'd love to see it go up because they work hard, and I'll always say that they're never going to be paid what their true worth is. We did not have, to my recollection, a lot of discussion about supplement. But again, I'm not anti it, but I also don't control your budget, so that's up to all of you, and I appreciate any support you would give our teachers. What I would say is, the discussions we had revolved around the 12.69% that we're asking for. That is the immediate concern. I know that Sean and his team have proposed 10%. What I want to alert the board again to is the situation with our buildings. I would ask, if you can fund the 12.69%, fund the 12.69%. If you could do the 12.69% and give us 1%, I'm all in. I think that'd be wonderful.
You've
okay?
seen the budget too,
I,
Dr.
I
Kapicki.
understand, okay? But, you know, I think there's always ways to do things, but that's a debate between the county commissioners. I'm not a county commissioner. Our budget, we run the school system, we run the county system. But the 12.6% is very important, because if we don't get it, we're already going to be a couple million behind for next year. We're battling deficits every year because we're not fully funded either by the state or by the local or the federal. Everybody's cutting back, and I'm not pointing a finger at you, but it is the reality of what we're dealing with, and it's hard to keep cutting back when you know, things are going up. Utilities are going up, salaries are going up, benefits are going up, cost of living is going up, insurance costs are going up, all the same things you're dealing with, we're dealing with. The real crisis that we are all going to have to face in Cabarrus County is the growth. The growth is real. We are a growing school system. It's growing in Charlotte, which is impacting Cabarrus, which is going to impact Kannapolis, and continue to grow the county. You see the same projections I see about what the county is going to look like in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's not decreasing, it's increasing. We had a smaller growth this year than we anticipated, but we anticipate between 1.2, I'm doing this off of memory, so forgive me, but we're anticipating between 1.2 and 1.6% each year over the next 5 to 10 years. So if you multiply that by 35,000 kids, you do the math pretty quick, we're growing, right? The big need we have right now is the elementary school Northwest Senior High School. That elementary school is crucial to us, and I would ask the county, please do not delay the funding for that. Find a way to fund that this year, because if you put that off a year or two, I'm going to have to cap schools. There's no way around it. Odell Elementary School we're over capacity, we're over design capacity in both the primary and the elementary school right now. We are going to do our best to get it right for the school year, lack of a better way of saying it. We're going to do our best to make sure we don't have to cap this year. There's no way around the following year we have to cap the school. Like, I can't fit kids. So what does that mean? That means if you move into the Odell neighborhood, you will not be going to that school. You'll be driving by Odell to get to another school. I'm going to be putting your kid on a bus, or you're going to be putting your kid in a car and you're going to be driving to another elementary school, because I don't have the physical room to put you in the building in the neighborhood that you reside in. The northwest area of the county is exploding on us. We are in desperate need of an elementary school up there. And when you think of I always say the triangle, the way Cabarrus is shaped, in the northwest corner, we have the Odell areas, Cox Mill, Boulder Elementary up there as well, and they're all packed. And I can't shift them to the other schools, because it's just, I'm just moving things around, and it's a triangle, right? It's a triangle within a triangle. I'm just moving kids and I don't have the room. I can't put kids in Cox Mill because Cox Mill's packed. Boulder is over capacity now, and it's going to continue to be close to capacity within a year or two. So I say to you, like, I have 3 elementary schools up there, kids coming and no room to put the kids. So you're going to have to move kids somewhere else. And when we did the realignment study, starting back in January of 23, right? 23? February, I think it's February 20th, we actually voted for it. We stated very clearly to our board and to the public, and we said it repetitively and over again, you cannot realign your way out of the problem. You have to realignment is going to help you in terms of balancing your capacity, but it's not going to fix it. And the only way you can fix it is through realignment to better attribute your kids capacity-wise, socioeconomic-wise, proximity-wise, and education-wise. So we looked at 3 tenets: socioeconomics of rebuilding, the proximity of the houses to the kids, and then the educational, I don't want to say value, the education of the population in that area, of the parents. Did they have an associate's degree, a high school degree, college? We want to take a really good look, so we tried to balance as best we could. And we got it, we definitely improved it, but the capacity was always an issue, and we didn't align on capacity because it would have just messed everything up. The feeder patterns was the other thing. We want kids to go to an elementary school, middle school, and high school and have a smooth transition so parents can but can understand clearly where the kids are going to school. Well, it's an elementary school this year, is at that middle school, is at that high school. So we did all of that, we accomplished it. But the realignment did not fix all the problems, and here we sit. I know, Odell Elementary off of memory is, I think it's built for about 900 kids, and I'm close. I know there's probably about 1,200 coming in there next year. So we're already over the capacity was built for, and we can massage that and make that work, but it's not great educational. Kids will get a great education, but you're really starting to stress buildings. And you're really starting to stress teachers, and you're really starting to stress resources. So I would say to you, well, I appreciate everything you're all doing, and all of you have been supportive, and I appreciate it immensely. I've had conversations with many of you, and sir, I haven't met you yet, Mr. Jones. I know that we've played a little phone tag, but I look forward to getting to know you. Anything you can do for us is helpful. But I cannot emphasize to you enough, if you put off building that school, we will definitely cap schools. And you know this too, Northwest, we've already put $8 million into that high school. I invite any of you to take a walk with me to go through Northwest High School. We've been pushing that down, pushing that down. I don't have the answer financially. With all due respect, and I mean, sir, that's not my job. That's your job to figure out how we're going to pay for it, right? And my board as well. But we've already sunk $8 million into that project. The more you put that off, every year that project price goes up, and it's going to cost you more money and a higher tax rate, and we're going to be arguing about the same thing, and the price is going up, and the building's falling apart. We've had 3 major water breaks there this year. The piping underneath there is in really rough shape. The building itself is in rough shape. And I know a lot of times people say, well, fix it, remodel, refurbish. You can't. It's just, you're going to waste money doing that, and it's just not, it's not feasible. So to me, they're the 2 most important priorities in the district, is to build the elementary school as fast as we can. If you were to give us the money to build that this year, we could have that open within 27, going into the 25, 26, the 2027. 2 years it'll take us to build it. We can get that open, and that would alleviate the issue. I still may have to cap that 1 year, but if you put that elementary school down the road for 2 or 3 years, you're capping for a long period of time, and now you're really starting to disrupt the realignment that we did to try and help the district moving forward for the future. So that's what I would say to you. I would say that it's crucial that we get the funding for the elementary school, and then again for Northwest High School. And then there's discussions that we've had in terms of what does the building project look like moving forward in terms of building buildings. We're still going to need some work on some high schools. We're going to need some work on we need more elementary schools. We're probably going to need one in the southern part of the district as well. And there's some older buildings that we've talked about high school-wise that we probably need to take a hard look at too. And then I'll close by saying there are $300 to $400 million of deferred maintenance that I know you're aware of, and I know Kannapolis City Schools also has a lot of deferred maintenance things as well. So it's not just us, it's everybody in the county, but we're serving right now over 35,000 kids, and we are growing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and those pockets are the hot pockets. So that's kind of how I would answer the question.
So you didn't need any notes. I don't even know what you were talking about, first of all.
I'm
You
close
got-
on the estimates, but I could be exact if I had them in front of me.
So I did, so Commissioner Wortman, I heard what you said. You said you're solid on this, but I do have a question. So if Dr. Kopicki is saying we would prefer to go to the 12.6%,
12.69%. If that would fully fund our budget, that would help us for what we asked for this year for the district. But that doesn't include the money to build a new school.
right, I get that.
And that school also, just to remind the commissioners, not that you need a reminder, but that was approved last year.
Yes,
Okay?
I know.
And to
Yeah.
answer where you're going, if he says he needs that more, I'm not gonna buck that. But when the
Sweet.
teachers wanna know where their supplement is, I'm gonna absolutely send them back to the school board and the school system and say, we
And
funded
that's-
exactly what we
Well,
were asked to fund.
And I think that is fair, though, is that if we're going to give you what the school board requested from us, that is what they decided they wanted. Now, I did want to talk about also the elementary school. So to your point, yes, that was approved last year. And normally we don't go out for debt. And I'll be very open about the fact that I think that when we do go out for debt, I think that it needs to be on a ballot, and it needs to be a GO bond, and I think that the community needs to vote on that, because that is going to be a tax increase. And I think that they should be able to be the ones to say, yes, I'm willing to increase our property taxes to this amount of money to fund whatever schools and projects that we want to fund with that. That's just my personal opinion on that. I know some others have that same.
What's the history with school bonds in Cabarrus County? Don't they usually fail?
One has.
Normally, though, school bonds on a state level are pretty from my understanding, they're pretty successful. Like, I think one has failed, and I'm not aware of one in Cabarrus County that has
I have
failed.
to do some homework on that. I don't know the
And
answer.
here's where I differ on that, because you're sitting here telling us you have no choice. You know, your school board members are nodding their heads in the back. You're out of seats, so therefore we have no choice. And the issue for me with putting that on a GO bond is, as soon as we can get to that's a year and a half. You've already said you can't wait that long, so
We
now.
will cap schools before that.
So that
if
leads
that's the
me to
case,
my
yeah.
question, because now issuing debt, we do it every 2 years, this is an off year. Can we go to the LGC? Absolutely, we can. We have to do it as a lob instead of a GO. Do you have all of your permits and are you able to have all of your estimates and drawings and everything that they're gonna require? So say we go in October, we go in
No,
October.
that's fine. Let's talk
And
about
they
it.
approve it. We could put a shovel in the ground in November, but do you guys have everything that you're gonna need for us to be able to take it there? Or realistically, are we looking like next year's probably the soonest we can get to it?
So I would answer that, Commissioner Warren, by saying that my understanding, and it's limited, again, I'd have to go back without the in front of me. My understanding is the way that it was funded last year when we went through the LGC, there were some questions as to how it was funded, whether it be GO or LOB or whatever it may be, and I don't claim to know the specifics of that. But if I go to the LGC and it's a LOB, yes, I think we'd be prepared to do that within a couple of days. I'm pretty sure Dr. Bowers, Tim Lauder, and Brian Cohn would have that information available rather quickly. If it's not that process, because I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, that's kind of what slowed us up last year when we kind of went through the process, that it wasn't that way, and I don't recall how, Kelly, you could probably talk to how it came out, so.
So,
We would be prepared as long as we knew what the process was. I guess, tell me what the rules of the game are, I'll follow the rules, we'll make sure we're prepared. We'll do everything on our end to make sure that you and everyone has what they need. But if you, and I'm not trying to be repetitive, but if you do not, if you delay it, I will absolutely have to cap schools in 2026, starting out.
Well, let me ask you this. We do the middle school, where are we on Northwest High School?
It's
The
elementary.
high school.
I know, we're gonna do the elementary
Yeah.
school. If we approve that and we go out for money this year to get that, in a non-debt year, I guess, that we are in, where does that leave us on the high school?
okay, so,
I'll let Kelly talk first.
yeah, because there's some
she's got
history here with
historical-
this.
yeah.
Okay, so the band financing, yes, we could go next week and say, okay, this is going to cost us $50 million. And typically, those are done with multiple projects, though, not just one project or two projects.
Because it costs money to go to the LGC, right?
Well,
Like,
it
you
does,
have to-
but the reason is the band is set up for multiple projects, and it's also set up like a construction loan for your house, for the listening public at this point. So we would just be drawing down interest for 2 years during that process, but they allow you to set a budget. And typically, we did not draw or say we were going to take 100% of that budget for that project. We only took what we thought we were going to spend. So if that was a $100 million project, we were only doing $80 million during the ban. And then when we finalized it, we went with the full amount of the project. Sometimes all the project was closed, sometimes it wasn't at that point in time. But when you go and get a ban, you don't have to have full permitting. You just have
Right, exactly.
a project
Which is
amount.
what
and all
sold
that.
us up last year.
And so, yes, last year, because they forced us to go to LOBs, we had to have full permitting done and bids in hand. And that is why bands work better if you're doing multiple projects, because you have to have all of those bids fresh for 90 days, because that's about how long a bid lasts. And so if you can't keep all of them fresh, you know, you're kind of chasing your tail a little bit, trying to get everything ready. So that's kind of what the band does for you. But we were not allowed to do that. So we did the lobs. We did manage to get together, I believe, 12 separate projects to do that. But 4 projects were cut from that. The elementary school was one because it was not ready in that level. So I think, and we need to have some conversations with the LGC, with change in the treasurer and direction and all. There may be different options for us. But we need to have some conversations there. But I think, you know, we could go to them with the lobs, but we're going to have it ready, fully permitted, fully bid and all of that.
Also with the lob, though, we're not just paying interest at that point. We're paying interest and principal all up front.
You're
correct?
paying 100% upfront versus with the band, you're just paying interest on what you drew down for that period of time. And then you convert it at the end. So there was some misconception about that, or misunderstanding, because the amount that we had drawn down in the bands were not the full amount of the project, and were never intended to be. You just draw, there's no point in saying, you know, I'm going to take down 100 million if you're not going to spend 100 million in that period. So that was just a financing move, and Jim's here. If I'm getting any of this wrong, please jump in. But
Statutorily,
yeah,
they need this school. What happens if we don't fund it? What are we required to fund? Because the school system has sued the commissioners before and won.
Yeah.
So do we have a choice? Or, I mean, like, what are we statutorily required to do at this point?
well, we believe we are funding them at a rate that would be acceptable. However, capital's a little different. We do, which leads me to the second part of this. With the current capacity that we have,
Which is how much?
well, we're,
It's an estimate at this point.
we're waiting to get the financial advisors in here to give us information for sure, but we know we can get 50 million. We're comfortable with that without increasing the tax rate. That was baked into our capacity. So we do have capacity to do that without raising the tax rate. Can we do the elementary school and the high school? Probably not, but we won't know. We're working on, hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll have a good answer for what our full capacity looks like.
If we're okay for high school's like 130
The
million,
elementary
correct?
school, the 50
I
million.
was saying, there's
So
no
yeah.
chance we're good for both those if we're just okay for 50.
Well, no, I think, I hate throwing out numbers because we haven't messed with this much lately,
I would
but
say
we believe
it's-
that we're good for 100 million right now in capacity.
Correct, yeah. I would say we could probably get close to the high school with our capacity now, but then you have no money for the elementary school. Or we could do the elementary school, but the high school is so expensive that
And y'all
then you wouldn't
need
have any money for that, so.
Elementary school first, right? Like, that is the
The
priority.
priority would be, the elementary school first, which would be $50 million. It's kind of like, look at it like a 1A, 1B type deal, but the crisis right now is the elementary school, and that would be right around $50 million. The high school is about 130 right now. So I don't know if you can do this, but what I would, just a suggestion, if the 50 million would sail, that'd be great, and if you can give us money to continue working on the high school and maybe plan out for that in a year or two, that'd be great, but that's your decision, but we
And
need both.
On the record, I would love to do it as a GO bond. I would. Let the voters vote on it. But what we're hearing is we can't afford to wait, and, you know, the soonest we can get it is a year and a half, so.
Right. And I get that. And also what I'm hearing, though, is we wouldn't have to increase the property taxes in order to get it. So
The
I'm
elementary
not,
school is the absolute immediate crisis need.
right. And I understand that, because working on this,
I know
working
you
with
know
you
the
guys and
numbers,
working
yeah.
on the school board, I know that area is incredibly packed. And, listening to Commissioner Jones and myself and Commissioner Pittman, who I know is not going to raise taxes either, it's not that we don't want to be able to give you guys what you need. I know this is an emergency, that we need to get this elementary school built. And so I would be willing to have you guys look into and do what you need to do with the LGC in order to do that. And then moving forward, I would prefer, my thought is that we should do a GO bond. I get it, it's not immediate, but for that amount of money and the amount of money, I mean, like, we talked about $1 billion for the school
You're
system.
somewhere between 500 to probably $1 billion in terms of taking care of all the building projects coming up, which would include, I think it was like 2 elementary schools, Central Cabarrus High School. It would be design money for looking at Midland area for a high school there long-term. It would be the $300 or $400 million for all the deferred maintenance projects as well. Again, I'm pulling from memory, but it's minimum $500 million, maximum at least $1 billion.
And we are a
Some-
500, is it $500 million deferred maintenance?
Roughly about, and then keep in mind, too, when you build a school and you are, like, right now, you're building 3 different projects, and you took about $40 million off that deferred maintenance.
Well,
by
but
that.
here's the thing.
So it
Here's-
drops, but yes.
The thing about
$400
deferred
million.
maintenance, though, is it never goes away.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
you're going
no,
to, even if you took it off for those particular schools in 20 years, they're going to need a new
You're
roof too.
you're between $300 and $400 million of deferred maintenance in the district.
Okay.
So just 2 informational points real quick. So number 1, yes, we're relatively confident with our debt capacity of being able to support one or the other likely. However, the budget as a whole is a large machine, right, with different levers. And so the way we have that debt capacity is by the Community Investment Fund funding, right? So just keep that in mind, that is what our capacity looks like today with planned funding. If we adjust for reductions, and that's certainly the ability of this board to do, if we adjust, for example, to account for some of the things that we've left off this budget through reducing our CIF fund, I don't think that would take us down below an elementary school ability, but that definitely will reduce our future debt capacity impact because we use those $30 to $40 million to fund that fund to then pay the principal and interest across that. And so it's an equation, right? We just would need to be very thoughtful about making sure and make sure our financial advisor feels confident as we get him in here and analyze that information.
So if we go to the LGC for this elementary school, and then we put Northwest Cabarrus High School on a GO bond, and it fails, do we have to wait 3 years before we can address that school, once that fails? And that's the other thing, I've been told we gotta wait 3 years, so if we're already needing it, and then we put it on a GO bond and it fails, we still have to build it one way or the other, because you need it, but now I'm 3 years behind automatically. How does that work?
So previous administration at the LGC, we believe that was, I'm going to call it an unwritten rule because it's not written anywhere. However, they were turning people away for at least a 2-year period, to do any other financing on it. So whether or not that has changed, that's something that we can, we were discussing this earlier today, scheduling a meeting and going up and having some conversations with the LGC, just around a lot of these issues and what the new regulations are and what they're considering, what different vehicles they're considering now, to get an understanding of what options we could bring to you.
Yeah, and I had discussion actually with an instructor at the North Carolina School Board Association several years ago, because I had heard this very same thing from Rodney. And she said she had never heard of that. She said that she didn't know anything about that. That was not true. And so I don't know where that came from. I don't know how that started. And to your point, maybe it is an unwritten rule, but I certainly think discussion with the LGC to kind of figure out where they are on all of this would be
And
most
that
likely
was something we were discussing in light of the elementary school need, to kind of ascertain what our options might be, to bring you the best package possible.
And the other thing for all of your awareness as well, specific to the elementary school, is we have previously funded funds to support the design and all of that work so that we can make sure the ball continues to move forward. Not sure where it is exactly right this minute, but we can get all the way to be construction-ready with currently allotted funds, and then would just need to achieve whatever debt package we needed to support the actual construction of it today.
Given how expensive it is to design these buildings, since you need so many of them, is there a plan for the school board to keep using the same design to build every single school, so we don't have to continue to spend new money every time we have to design a school?
That's a great question. Right now, we have the one we're building at Coltrane Webb is the replica of the one we built at Arbor McAllister. So I would think moving forward, any time we could use a model that's working for us effectively, we would do that. The one at, the school we need for the Odell primary and elementary school area would be a little larger, to the tune of about 900 kids. I'm fairly certain that we could use the same design model. We'd have to tweak it a little bit to make it a little larger. But you are right that the more we can replicate and use the same fairly similar design, it's going to save us money on those costs.
And we've gotten several emails where I have, is it true that there are free designs on the state website that you can pull, and you enter in how many kids' school that you need, and they have free designs is that true? Or is that?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a prototype.
yeah,
It's
so,
not
yeah.
an actual design. You still have to have an architect draw it.
That's my rub. I was on the education committee in the state house when I was there, and I was told that they have in Raleigh plans for building a school with all this Taj Mahal garbage that I've seen put in a lot of the schools, been built since I've been here. And I think that's fine. Have that, use that instead of all this other garbage being put in it. And it bugged the heck out of me. You had to pay an architect even though you already had the plan. I know you got to have different dimensions for different numbers of kids and all that, but if you have a plan available in Raleigh, we ought to just use it. That's the way I feel about it.
Well, I definitely appreciate the discussion on this, and I do think,
I do have one. It
Yeah.
doesn't deal with the school, but something earlier you said. All right, you came this year to us, this goes back to my 5-year plan lookout. You came to us wanting a 12.6%
6.9%,
raise, or increase revenue, all right?
Not a raise.
I said it wrong. Increase. And I thought you said in the beginning of your thing that you expect to be increasing and growing so rapidly. Do you expect that to be a normal ask year after year?
Excellent question. So what I would say to you is, we've had discussions with your county manager, Mr. Newton, about this year's ask. And again, I'm going to reiterate, the 12.69%, I would ask you to fund that, because that's going to get us to a good spot where we can exhale. Things are funded, we don't have to worry about cutting back or deficits or making up funding. So I know you've budgeted 10, I'd ask you to fund the whole thing, because it's that important to us, because if not, we're already behind we're behind the whole, we're behind the 8 ball on that. What we talked with Sean in our discussions, and he suggested is, in moving forward, we agreed that we meet on a more regular basis to kind of predict and plan out what do we need coming up in that year, instead of, I'm not saying meet last minute, but instead of waiting until April to say, hey, I need this, let's start talking in October, November, December. We can kind of align our budgets better and be better prepared. One thing that I also would say that's helped us in a very short period of time, that will continue to help us, and I have to commend my board for this, is we now have a finance committee in place, and we meet once a month. So we go over our own financial situations with various different topics. And that would be helpful too, for the county to kind of see those and be able to kind of work with us on that as well. So, no, I don't see I don't have a magic ball, right? Anything can happen, but I don't think that we're going to be asking for that kind of an increase every year, no. But I think if we're planning better and having better conversations, that we can prevent coming up with a large ask, barring out any kind of outside of, catastrophe or something crazy happen. But the buildings, that's not going to change, because the population keeps coming, and the kids, you got to put the kids somewhere. And I would also say that the county, and respectfully, Mr. Pittman, we've built great schools, and we have a great school system, and you have done that well, and the county has supported us on that. We appreciate that. I've been in a lot of places around the country. These are not Taj Mahal buildings that you're building. You're building good educational facilities for the 21st century for kids to walk into. and I have to say this because I have the microphone and you're allowing me to. Our kids, we just graduated with 2,600 kids, and they're going everywhere in the country. We're excited about some of the information that we're getting back on some of the achievements that they've received. We've worked really hard to continually improve the academics, and that's because of our teachers and because of the hard work our administrators do, and it's because of great kids we get. But I tell everyone, our kids, when we see these kids graduate, when you see where they're going to college and trade school and the military and how they're representing our county, it's just inspirational because they're doing great things. And our kids compete locally, regionally, and nationally. I mean, our kids go all over the country, and they're successful when they go. They don't just go and show up. They go and they represent this county in a very admirable fashion, and they succeed at high levels. And that, I say that because I want to remind you, your advocacy, your support helps that. So when you support these schools, and I get the hard conversations and the hard financial decisions, but you're investing in your kids and in your future, and they are doing phenomenal work all over this country. And it's only going to impact the county in a positive way in the 5, 10, 15, 20 years, as you all know. It makes my heart warm when I hear someone say, I moved to Cabarrus County because of the educational system. I feel very humble and honored to be part of that. And you should feel great about the things you've done to continue to support and build the system, because our kids are just excelling because of the support you've given us. And ultimately, really, truly, we have great teachers, just phenomenal teachers, do great things with our kids, and it just shows. So I just want to remind everyone that you have to educate your kids. You got to make sure you continue to support that. You got to make sure that we give them the resources that they need to be successful. And again, I don't want to walk out of our teachers thinking I'm not advocating for a raise. If you can give them a raise, give them a raise, because they deserve it. And they work extremely hard. We can never pay them enough. But my initial ask is give me the building, give me the full funding of the capital projects and all the things that we've asked for in that budget. And if you can include a raise in there, I'm all for it. I would never tell you not to raise the wages for our teachers because they deserve it.
And just one more question, because Commissioner Lindsay even hit on it. You guys had $400+ million in deferred maintenance, and you are the biggest part of our budget. And as she stated, that's not going anywhere. So has the school system looked at a different way of addressing deferred maintenance to where we no longer get into this? Or
Yeah, I think, I do think that, you know, the facilities and maintenance team, Chuck Taylor, Brian, Tim, Dr. Bowers, they do a great job at continually trying to stay up to speed. And I can tell you today, we lost a chiller at Concord High School. And it's going to take us 18 weeks just to get that to us because of the design and the way they fabricate it. So they're like the things that pop up you got to deal with. It's like taking care of a house, Mr. Wortman, that things break, things go bad, you got to take care of it. I do think they have a very good system in play, and I think that they're constantly reviewing and revising to see if they could be more effective with it. You know, the number's the number, right? We work really hard to get it down. I do believe if we address it or can take a big chunk out of it, we can manage it better long-term, yes.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that a little bit too, because you're right. I think the first time I ran for school board in 2018, it might have been at like maybe 250 million, and now here we are. And I mean, we could spend hours probably going backwards looking at the mistakes of not funding some of those deferred maintenance and where it's gotten us here. But one of the things that I wanted to mention to you, and I've told you my thoughts on this before, but I do think as we're designing these schools moving forward, we need to make sure that we are designing them in a way that they can be added onto instead of torn down. And when I look at Kannapolis City, they don't have an ability to buy more land and just build a brand new school. They've had to adapt to the fact that they can't do that. And so, you know, they're asking for additions for, you know, A.L. Brown or whatever school. So I hope that will be discussions that you got. That's just my thoughts on that. But I do think that would be a better way to help alleviate some of the growth issues that we have moving forward. Do y'all have any other questions for Dr. Kopicki? No? Well, let
Whenever I
me,
get to this, I appreciate it.
okay. Let me, thank you so much
Thank you.
for ad-libbing that entire discussion and not bringing anything. I know you didn't plan on that tonight, but we want to be transparent and have these open conversations to try and figure out the best way to do this. So I appreciate you being willing
We're here
to
help.
have that
I-
with
I-
us.
And again, thank you for the help you've given us. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're smarter than you think you are.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Commissioner Pittman, did you have something that you wanted to
Yes,
bring up?
and I'll go through the whole budget, we'll be here all night. But there are some things that kind of rubbed me wrong, and I wanted to kind of address that. That's 8 pieces of this on 3 pages, so I'll try to get through as quick as I can. First question I have, and I don't necessarily need an answer right now, but I wonder how much did it cost to produce and distribute copies of this booklet? I object to producing such a fancy booklet instead of a plain paper line item budget. When I expressed that objection originally, my intent was that it should not happen this time around as well as going forward. We don't need all these photographs and graphics or all these pages of justification, just the clear raw numbers. This booklet, to me, is a waste of taxpayer funding. We should have discussed and maybe even voted on that before it was done, and should have switched to a simple line item budget without all this fluff. Number 2, page 22 refers to a goal of advancement to, quote, create pathways for upward economic mobility and to support efforts to diversify and strengthen the local economy, end of quote. Growth is not a legitimate goal to be pursued, and it is not a government responsibility. Growth is an issue to be approached cautiously. If growth occurs or if it does not, it should be natural, not sought after by any government entity as a goal at the expense of the taxpayers. It has to be something that happens on its own, not something to be encouraged through the interference of a government entity by offering financial incentives to big business special interests by the enticement of giving them taxpayer funding. Government must respond to growth wisely if and as it occurs, not seek to cause growth to happen by government inducements extorted from the taxpaying citizens. The illegitimate pursuit of growth as an end in itself has led to the corruption of financial incentives to big business and has resulted in overdevelopment, leading to an unnatural overcrowding of our community, our schools, and our streets and roadways, and to the loss of rural land. There is no justification for government officials to pursue growth as a goal by extorting our honest, hardworking citizens through unjust taxation and profligate spending for the enrichment of corporate special interests and getting kickbacks for doing so. This must stop. I will not be able to change this on my own, but it is why Commissioner Lindsay and I were elected, as the majority of voters in this county showed that they have awakened to the reality of what has been done to them and how their money has been misused for years. The madness of purchasing the ACN building is a prime example, as county leadership insisted on paying over $27.3 million more than it was worth. Who all benefited from that debacle at the expense of our honest taxpaying citizens, I'd like to know. 3, on page 79, my foremost objection is to any taxpayer funding for the EDC and economic development grants. I cannot vote for a budget that contains these items. These two together amount to $2,630,000 in taxpayer funding of a non-government entity for a non-government purpose that needs to be removed from the backs of our taxpaying citizens. It might be a good idea instead to put that amount toward paying down our debt, or maybe give it to the sheriff's office, if anything. There is also a mention of affordable housing going from $2 million in fiscal year 2025 to zero going forward. Guess what? With less frivolous spending on things that are none of the government's business, together with a significant reduction in the property tax rate, more people could better afford to keep the houses they own, or maybe afford to buy a home in the first place. Personally, I believe property taxes should only be charged on the amount the owner originally paid for the house, as long as that person owns that house, but I guess we would have to push for the state to make that change. Meanwhile, we could also save our taxpayers millions of dollars by not funding anything that is not a government entity or function. I propose that before we vote on the budget, we cut out every penny that is not for a government entity or a government responsibility. Number 4, on page 89, I understand the need to replace the animal shelter, although it is not quite the priority for me that it is for Commissioner Lindsay. What gives me pause is the enormity of the payment projected for fiscal year 2027. I don't know, maybe we can't do anything about that, but if that amount can't be reduced, can we at least spread it out with lower payments over more years? I do not expect to be on this board by then, and I hate to stick whoever will be with that large payment all at once. If I could spread that out over more years, or excuse me, if we could spread that out over more years, that might be another reduction in expenses per year that could help us move toward reducing property tax rates too. On page 90, I have the same concern for the work to be done at Camp Spencer. Is there any way we can spread out those payments instead of paying such a large amount all at once? Number 5, on page 93, I think we need to cut out all of these computerized gadgets, at least in the lower grades, and get back to basic education with paper and pencils or pens so the children actually learn to do math and handwriting again. Basic education would benefit greatly from that, and the children would actually learn more. Then school scores might drastically improve. Representative Pat Hurley and I got a bill passed in the legislature some years ago requiring schools to teach multiplication tables and cursive writing. You can't do cursive writing on a computer. We found out that most schools in the state were ignoring that law, and we got another law passed to enforce it. Some are still not doing it. Now, I don't know about Cabarrus County. I'm not sure how much compliance there is in this county, but if there are any schools anywhere not obeying that law, their funds should be at least reduced significantly until they do. Shortly after we passed that law, the ladies at the post office thanked me for it and told me that most young people could not figure out how much the stamps they wanted to buy would cost, as I always did, and certainly did not know how to write a check for them, as I always did before going to buy them. Education needs to get back to the basics. Number 6, I'm also concerned with the enormous cost of deferred maintenance. I hope going forward we will learn to take care of maintenance issues as we go along and not let things just deteriorate to the point that they cost so much more to fix all at once. Early on in my time in the North Carolina House, I attended a meeting of our local school board. They were discussing repair and maintenance issues that were brought to their attention by their maintenance workers. I was shocked to hear that they spent many thousands of dollars, can't remember if it was $30,000 or $300,000, but I think it was $300,000, on a study, or having a study done on the matter. That money should have gone to the actual repairs of which the maintenance workers had already informed them, rather than wasting all that money on a study. We need to have a more practical approach to such things. Number 7, my comment on page 108 is very simple. I would insist on general obligation bonds voted on by our citizens as the only way to approve new debt, and would vote to put such a referendum on the ballot. As to certificates of participation, limited obligation bonds, or any accrual of debt on which the citizens are not allowed to vote, absolutely no. On page 113, I insist again that with last year's abominable revaluation, the property tax burden on our citizens is outrageous. I would prefer that our overall budget be greatly reduced and that we reduce property taxes as close to revenue neutral as possible. I understand the argument that revenue neutral is not doable at this time. I therefore propose that we effect what reductions we can in the budget and lower the property tax rate to 55 cents per $100 valuation. Another way to put it might be to lower the property tax rate to that level and cut wasteful and inappropriate spending out of the budget to match that lower rate. I understand that some reductions in the budget will be occurring, such as eliminating the wasteful spending on promotional items, which we don't need as we are not a private business, and maybe eliminating some unfilled positions. I hope we can further reduce the budget by cutting out every item that is not a government entity or a government responsibility. Maybe I can't get that done, but that is what I was elected to try to do, and that is how I will vote.
Commissioner Mortman, did you have a comment?
Kelly, and because you've not been here long enough, have we tried to stretch out financing before? Because currently, we can only do it for 20 years. Haven't we tried to get it to 30 years, but are not able to do so?
Yes, we did try that. I do understand that the new treasurer may be open to 30 years. So that was a conversation that we had earlier today. You know, maybe projects like Northwest High School that are going to be that expensive and a, you know, hopefully a 70-year building or more might be something that we would want to ponder for that. That was something we wanted to discuss with them and bring back to you as an option.
That's right.
And is David
He's
Thrift
not
in
here tonight.
I don't know if Jim knows, not to put, the revaluation, I believe it was Stanley or Union just had theirs, and theirs was up, I think it was 66%. From what I've been told, the rates have not gone down at all, so if we were to put the revaluation off to this year, it'd be just as much, if not more. And that's, I wish David Thrift was here. Is he able at our next meeting to provide some numbers for that? Because we continue to hear that, and we did find out, as we've stated before, a month before that happened, that we could have put it off, but it'd be interesting to hear what the numbers would be right now if we were to do it compared to what they were when we actually did it. So is he able
We
to
can
provide
certainly
that?
do
Okay.
My understanding on that is that inflation had a lot to do with it. And inflation is down. I expect it to get down further. So if we waited the 4 years that we could have, we might have been in a lot better shape on that.
And the affordable housing was the one-time affordable housing fund that we did the one time, which is why it went to zero, correct?
Correct.
And what is your suggestion on a GO bond if it fails and we still have to fund it, Larry? What do we do if we do that as a GO bond and it fails and we have to fund the school because the kids are coming? What is your suggestion at that point as to what we do?
That would be tough. I understand that. I agree it'd be tough. My point is, we need to quit raising all this debt without the people's approval. That's my main concern there. We've got to stop taxing people to death and putting some out of their homes because they can't afford to pay it.
Well, and to be honest, you know, with a bond, that's the reason why you put the information out there to the people. I think people are reasonable. They understand that we have, if we've got schools that are at capacity and they know that we're going to have to build this school or we're going to have to cap it. I mean, honestly, Commissioner Wortman, I don't think our taxpayers are that oblivious and not willing to be reasonable about it. The good thing about a GO bond is that money, that increase specifically has to go to those buildings. I think a lot of taxpayers are so exhausted because they think we're wasting their money. But if they have an actual piece of paper that says, this is where this money has to go, I think they would be much more amenable to understanding why they would have to have a tax increase for that.
If we take it a LOB, then the money has to go, and you're telling them that the money for the lob is going to that school, and we build that school. Is that not the same exact thing?
Well, but for a debt that is so huge, I mean, when we talk about what the schools are actually going to need over the next several years, I mean, we had at one point talked about $1 billion. I don't think that's not something that I would feel comfortable approving without going to the citizens with that amount of money.
Has a school bond failed in Cabarrus County before?
I am not aware of one that has failed. I do understand that the last one that was done, the amount that was approved was not the amount that was taken out by the commissioners at that time. It was less.
So we got approved for more, is that right? But they didn't use
My
it?
understanding was we got approved for maybe 30 million and they only took out 17.
Do you know why?
I do not.
Oh,
We can look into it.
okay.
Yeah,
I'm just
I mean, that would
curious,
be-
why
that'd be nice
would
to know.
you?
Certainly look into it.
So,
I mean, I get it, like, if I have a credit card that's wanting to up my amount, and I'm like, no, 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 don't do that, I don't wanna.
So if the need is for an elementary school right now, what's the thought on going to the LGC for that and then putting Northwest Cabarrus on a GO bond? Because according to the school system, they absolutely have to have that elementary school right now. So what's the thought on trying the GO bond and see what happens,
I
but
say-
don't try it on the elementary school, try it on the high school?
Elementary school, we do it. Put the high school on the bond.
Is that?
Along with
comprom-
multiple other things
Yeah,
on the
but-
bond.
I mean, is that fair? That, you know, and that way, at least.
And then if
when-
not, we can move every single child into the ACN building.
No? Amen. Yeah. Because we still built it for $20 million cheaper, or bought it for $20 million cheaper than we could have built it. Now, I understand they charge us, I get that, but at the end of the day, we still bought it for cheaper than we could have built it. And we're just gonna agree to disagree on that.
And that's
It is what
fine,
it is.
that's totally fine. But I'm saying if we ever got to a place, we do have an ACN building that has nobody in it right now. And I guess if we needed to move some kids in there, we could certainly do that. Or the third floor of the courthouse, which I understand is not being utilized at this moment because they don't need it. So we do have space available in buildings.
So if the board were interested in going down that path with a lob for the elementary school, just to reiterate what I said earlier, we do already have the funds previously funded to complete the design and necessary purchase property, all of that stuff, to keep the ball moving forward on that front. It would probably take, I think we talked earlier, maybe 4 to 5, maybe up to 7 months to get all of that stuff in place prior to needing to go for the final debt. But if we had that agreed plan,
Yeah. If we can't take it to them by November, then I think we'll have to wait till February for them to review our new audit. But we could be prepared to take it as soon as they can get the project bid. We could be ready to go if that is your desire.
Did you say you could have it tomorrow?
Then I would like to see us go to the LGC for the elementary school, and then let's put the high school on a GO and see what happens. That's,
And I'm in agreement with that.
and we can go, like we talked about earlier, go ahead and start having preliminary conversations to figure out with the LGC what their appetite is on various avenues and everything to give you all the best information we can on that front, so.
I think that's
I do have
reasonable.
Some follow-up questions on what you
Please.
said.
Yeah.
You keep talking about cutting non-governmental services, non-governmental entities we're funding. What are those specifically? You only mentioned Economic Development Company. What are the others?
Anything that's not a government function.
But what are they? Tell me what they are.
Well, incentives is the biggest thing.
Okay, that's the economic. Is there anything else?
Gosh, I know I saw stuff in here, but I'll get back to you on it, because I think we do a lot of stuff that's none of our business, and we just need to get out of doing that. We'd save taxpayers a lot of money.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, if you're gonna ask me to consider cutting something, I'd like you to be more specific on what you're asking me to cut. You understand?
Yeah.
You-
Well, I wasn't
I mean,
being-
you make a general statement, I wanna cut non-governmental services. I may be for that, but you're not pointing out anything to me to look at to see if it's
That wasn't what I was
non-governmental.
trying to do. I was saying, making a general statement, and saying, we need to look for those things and get them out of there, whatever they may be.
Okay,
So I will say that
I'm
we.
just trying to understand.
Yeah, okay.
We did, so, and I know that you mentioned this too, and the EDC funding, we did basically cut that in half for this budget cycle, because these are discussions that we've had regarding whether or not we should be funding the EDC. And the reasonable kind of middle of the road half for that was, you know, kind of where.
Yeah, I understand.
We
that.
landed it
Came
and-
around at 200 some.
Yeah, I mean, it was
Yes.
175, and then they also had a $25,000
Yeah,
grant.
there's a $25,000 Spark grant that was a 3-year agreement, so we have a contract for that.
The other thing I wanted to mention to you about the animal shelter, I ain't mad at you, by the way. It's totally fine, which is exactly why I said to Commissioner Wortman, I'm fine to take that design money and use it to fund the schools at the 12.6% that they requested. Because we've gone to the state, and I'm hoping that the money will actually come from the state. I've asked them, and put the word out to those folks that are our representatives up there, that we would like to see that be given to us on that level, so that it doesn't even have to come from taxpayers. And then the design money, hopefully we could pull it out from whatever the state provided, and we wouldn't have to worry about payments on it because it would be paid for.
I just want to say, I understand incentives we're already stuck with, we can't help but do. I'd love to cut them all out, but we can't afford the lawsuits that we get for that. I'm just saying, no more going forward. Never add to that. You know, get out from under them as soon as we can, and don't do any more.
Now, when we looked at this 5-year plan, you saw the debt we're going under this budget. How do we make up revenue if we start cutting taxes? I'd love to cut taxes, but if we're going to be $10 million in debt in a year, and we cut our tax rate now, how much further debt are we going to go in? How do we get out? What other revenue sources do we have other than taxes that you can come up with?
Yeah, I understand that. What I'm saying is, this budget has not been gone through like I would do it. So, you know, one thing, all these charts and stuff, I don't know, maybe it's a learning disability or something, but I have trouble following all that stuff. A line item would do me a lot more good, you know. And I've tried looking through, and I just couldn't do the whole thing. But it needs to be studied with an eye to what shouldn't be there. And we'd save enough money that maybe we wouldn't go in so much debt. That's my point, is we need to figure out what should never have been there in the first place and take it out. And maybe we can lower the taxes. We may not be able to, but that's my goal, is to help people out that are, I'm hearing about people that are losing their homes because they can't pay property taxes.
And I understand it. So is it fair to say we need to look at that because we only have, 10 days before we have to approve this, or 12 days? I mean, is that exercise that we can do in that 12 days?
Well, I've been saying this stuff all this time, and it hasn't
I
happened.
understand.
Well, I would like to say, though, to be fair, we were $6 million in deficit when Sean came in. And I know that, and Kelly, and to your credit too, Kelly, I mean, the staff had already been aware of the deficit. They have gone through and done, in my opinion, you guys have done a great job looking through this to try and at least get us to be not $6 million in debt. But I agree with you that moving forward, anything that we take on is going to be 10 million plus whatever. So we are going to, but I also have full faith in Sean and his team. He's been here 9 weeks. I mean, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Didn't you just go there? So what I'm saying is that to move this ship in the right direction, I feel like we are doing quite a bit to do that, but it's going to take much more. But I do think the staff having an entire year with each other to be able to assess that and go through that, I have no doubt in my mind that they can.
Well, I hope so. And I understand Sean's, hadn't had much time, and I think he's done a lot, and no more time than he's had, but we just can't keep piling all this on top of people who don't make as much money, as some of the ones that are benefiting from all this.
Well, and I agree with you. And one of my fears is that the folks that made this county so great for everybody to want to move to are going to be forced out because they're not going to be able to afford their houses anymore. And I don't want to see that happen. I want to look out for the people that are already here versus the people that aren't here yet. So I agree with you. I mean, we definitely need to do our part to make sure that this county is still affordable for the folks who still want to live here and stay here. I don't want to see a mass exodus. Look, when I lived in Atlanta, that's exactly what happened in the little town, I say little town, I mean, it's not so little anymore, but there was a huge exodus from that community because people could not afford to be there anymore. And so they had to leave and go out to the country. And it just kind of is this cycle. And I feel like people elected you and I, and even you too, Commissioner Wortman, you know, when you ran, I know you're not a Republican anymore, and I'm not saying that that's not okay, but what I'm saying is there was a certain mentality of our taxpayers of what they expected from their elected officials. And they keep electing the same type of people over and over again, but aren't getting the results that they've been hoping to get all of this time. And so I feel like, you know, we have to be the stopgap and say, we're gonna stop the way that it's been doing all of these years. That's just my.
But we've got to balance and be strategic about any of this, and that we don't give up the services to schools, to the things that make us great by just cutting the funds. I mean, just cutting funds to cut funds will make this community even less desirable to live in, no matter what the prices are. So it's got to be a balancing act between everything. It's not just, hey, cut taxes, we'll just cut services, we'll cut expenses. We got to balance this to keep the quality of life in Cabarrus County the same, or better.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of a bond, is that the taxpayers get the opportunity to say, yes, I want to fund that school. Yes, I want to fund that sheriff's department. Yes, I want to fund that courthouse. Whatever it is that we might be needing.
$10 million next year is 2 cents, roughly, 2.5 cents. You're an outsider. You've cut quite a bit. Do you think you can cut 10 more million out without affecting services and personnel for next year?
I think it'll be a tough task for sure. What you've seen through Rash's presentation is that part of the way we were able to tackle this year is because our projected revenue also grew some from February to now. So if that trajectory continues, and we do see that will help limit that. Also, in our 5-year plan, we stay very conservative, as you know, being here for quite some time, with the revenue projections. So hopefully that balances out a little bit. And I won't lie to you, I mean, the biggest expenses, right? Education. We want to continue to support education. That's 37% of our operating costs. Salaries and wages and benefits for our employees, obviously very important to continue to prioritize and invest in. And both of those things grow at a pretty healthy clip every year. Now, we have factored that in, but I do think there's some value to, again, generate really strong partnerships and talk early in the year instead of towards just at the end of budget season to figure out how we can gain the best efficiencies to try and keep those growth numbers close to what we planned for, or even try and reduce in certain areas. And then, you know, get creative, right? Like, I love the conversation tonight about going to the LGC now, establishing those ratios. I think the more we can do that, and we've got really great commissioners with good heads on y'all's shoulders to help drive the direction on that front. But I do think for next year, we can figure out ways without impacting services to get to a balanced budget. Beyond that, that's where it really takes a crystal ball to figure out how right are those numbers and how close are we going to get. But I think the reality is for this commission board, it's a tough task, but it's how do you get to that reevaluation cycle, and with the rate you're at or close to the rate you're at to support everything that needs to be supported. And that's a tough, I don't envy y'all with that decision to make there.
And when we go back to the LGC, can we ask the specific question about the 3 years? Because I have heard that, and if it's not true, it needs to stop being said.
Sure.
So can we specifically ask that question about if that fails?
We absolutely
3 years.
My problem is that, okay, I'm not a very rich person, but I know a lot of people who are a lot worse off than I am. And this stuff is affecting them. And I feel like in past years, we've done all these incentives and done these budgets and stuff and haven't thought about them, really. And I do think about them. It bothers me. I mean, listen, I'm a pastor. I go in churches and I think, why in the devil did you spend all this money on being so elaborate when you could have put it to helping people instead, you know? And so I approach government expenses the same way. If it's not your responsibility, don't pay for it because you're making the taxpayers pay for it. That's my thing. Let's do what we have to do. My top priorities are law enforcement and public safety. You know, we got to do that. We got to do the schools. You know, there are things that the government has to do. We need to go through this and find anything that we don't have to be doing that maybe we shouldn't be doing because it's not our responsibility and cut it out. That's what I'm saying.
So I want to also, Commissioner Wortman, you brought up the ambulances and the sheriff's cars, right? So can you give some kind of, because I'm assuming that they decided, when we had budget discussion with them, they decided these priorities or not priorities. So can you kind of give some background on that?
Yes, so we asked each department to give us a 5% reduction plan. And we went through with each department what they had proposed. Some things were accepted, some things were not. We did accept that as an offer from them after some discussion. You know, it is somewhat, you can consider it kicking the can down the road, but you can redo those one time pretty cleanly after that. You know, they say they wouldn't want us to do it. With the sheriff's vehicles, we did have quite a glut come in, ones that we had ordered during the COVID period when vehicles weren't coming in. And so we had quite a few come in around the same time. And so we are upfitting those as quickly as we can and getting those out on the road. So I think that was probably their reasoning behind it, was that they had gotten a few recently. But again, you know, we're constantly checking mileage, checking for lemons, that kind of thing. You know, wrecked vehicles happen. We have to replace those as needed. So it is good to have, you know, some backup vehicles and things in case something gets wrecked and you have something to put on the road immediately. But we do, you know, save vehicles that are high mileage, higher mileage, and put the newer ones on the road and use those. So those were the offerings made, and so, like I said, some were accepted, some were not. So it's, you know, it's whatever your preference is on those particular items. We're, you know, happy to work around it.
Can I just add one, just the accepted versus, that was Kelly, myself, and other leadership saying, do we think that they can, that would impact services offered or anything like that? So there were some things that, even though they were offered, we said, no, that feels risky, we don't want to do that, sorry.
And talking to Chief Lentz with EMS, every ambulance that is able to be reboxed has been reboxed. And after one time, it becomes a safety issue. I don't want to wait on emergency service vehicles.
Sure.
Van, or Sheriff Shaw, they have, the state opens up a window for a month or two at a time to where they can get those orders in. They're going to need them. I think what you saw, and they're not going to say it, but I will, I think what you saw is they gave up whatever they could to keep it from touching employees or so yeah, did they give that up? Yeah, but they still need it. So that argument, it's still there. You know, they're gonna, you can call that tightening the belt, but those two ambulances they're gonna need next year. They're gonna need them the year after. They're gonna need them the year after. Those two cop cars they're gonna need. Like, so I feel that is kicking the can down the road. Everybody up here supports law enforcement and EMS. So I don't want to stick them in an ambulance that's been remounted twice, that is a safety issue, and then have to deal with the fact that they got in an accident or it malfunctioned on the road because we didn't fund the new ambulance. I don't want to do that.
So what are the,
I'll just leave it on.
It's not just me.
what are the totals on that? Do you have those written down?
Two ambulances is $585,000.
Okay, so 2 ambulances is $585.
And for the two sheriff's cars, it's $139,830. And that includes the cars and the installation and the equipment that goes in it, is what I was told by Sheriff Shaw. So
Okay.
that's the whole vehicle complete out the door, so.
Okay. What else was on your list? I don't want to forget anything.
The teacher supplement, but according to Dr. Kopicki, he'd rather, and I respect that, he would rather have the 12.69%. So I will gladly send the teachers back to the school system to take that up with them. So I'm willing to compromise on that.
Okay.
But I absolutely want to fund, and this is where we're going to see differently, I absolutely want to give the $225,000 back to the EDC to fully fund them. Absolutely, 100%. That's where I'm at, so. That was the four that I had on. So,
Okay. Well, I do feel like we have made some progress tonight. So we are going back to the LGC. We're going to talk about this elementary school and see what we need to do for that. So I appreciate the conversation regarding that, and I know that the school system needs it. I appreciate you guys agreeing that we can fully fund the school system with the 12.6%. I think that that's going to be a big win for them as well. And the open discussion about moving forward as far as what are we realistically going to be able to do? If it's not going to be a 4.5% increase, then we need to budget for 10 to 12% moving forward. I think that's only common sense, but, you know, sense isn't very common anymore, I don't think. So is there anything else specifically? Commissioner Jones, I know that you are drinking out of a fire hose with
I've
us.
read it and did it, but no, I'm fine.
Okay. Commissioner Pittman, any other questions or concerns that we can mull over for the next week and a half before the 16th? And I know it's with Commissioner Shu not here, we don't really know where he's at on some of these issues, but I do want to say that I appreciate you guys having really good conversation tonight about this.
So, Chief Lentz is watching the meeting right now. If you would care for any comments from him about the ambulance he offered to hop on Teams, just so that y'all have that. He just emailed us to let us know he was watching, so.
Hey, well, if
We'll
you
get him on
can,
Teams real quick if you want.
get
any
him on.
comments from him.
Well, I'll just say right quick, I understand Commissioner Jones feel like he's drinking out of a fire hose. I've been here since December and I still feel like that. I was in the state house for 11 years and it wasn't as tough as this.
that is a fact. I
But-
agree with you.
I just say, just give you an example from my own personal experience on these property taxes. Church where I'm serving now pays me $200 every Sunday. And it's taken at least half of that for me to get ready to pay property taxes. I mean, I'd have had to do it without that money if I hadn't been preaching there. And, but it has taken about half of it to be able to do it. So.
Yeah, I get that.
Hey, Chief.
Good evening. I'm on my phone. If I need to get a
Can you hear
computer to
us?
get I can. Can you hear me?
We're getting the volume up in here, Chief Lentz. Hold on one second.
Say something now, Jimmy.
We still can't hear you yet.
Hang on just a second. We still can't hear you.
Sorry to delay you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Don't be sorry. We're thankful that you were watching and decided to let us know some things. So please feel free to speak.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm on my phone now. If I need to get a computer, I certainly can, but if this is working, we'll go with it. What Commissioner Wortman said is very accurate. We were asked to, look at ways to cut the 5%, which we looked at, and with the $585,000 for the 2 ambulances and what our anticipated collection increase is next year, put us right at the 5% mark for our budget. Mr. Wortman was right in the fact that every existing ambulance we have that is eligible to be remounted, when we are done remounting, we've still got 3 or 4 in the process that have already been budgeted for, POs already cut and are done. We're just waiting on to do it. All of our existing boxes will be done to where they will be on 2 chassis or a second chassis. We are not comfortable with going further than that and remounting again for metal fatigue and for safety purposes, bluntly. We can manage with giving up those 2 trucks, and we were comfortable in doing that. My concern with it is what we just described with the safety and the fact that if we order a truck today, the best we're going to do on a delivery date is 18 to 24 months. So in many ways, we are viewed down the court. Now, can we make it work? Yes. Could it be problematic in 2 to 3 years? That's just a guess that we'll have to cross our fingers for. And I hope that helps with some explanation.
No, it definitely helps. I appreciate you. We all want to make sure our emergency services are funded, and you guys have what you need. That is no question. I just, I think we just wanted to understand better, or at least I just wanted to understand better kind of your mindset when you made that decision, and then truly moving forward when we need to make sure. I hate to kick the can down the road too. We do that a lot with a lot of things, but it does help explain. But we do want to fund you guys as much as we can. That's definitely a priority for us. So I hope that y'all know that.
We do, and we appreciate it. I'll be honest, I've enjoyed listening to this conversation tonight, and not unlike the superintendent, I don't mind hopping up, not prepared, but I don't mind getting on to make our case more evident, and we'll certainly be available when needed if more questions are needed.
Well, I definitely appreciate you doing that. So thank you very much. Do y'all have any questions for him? No? Y'all are good? Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Just keep doing a good job.
No, thank you. Well, thank you, and thank you for this opportunity. Again, all of you have every contact number I've got and the deputy chief, so if you need us, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be glad to explain in more detail if needed.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a good night. Awesome. Okay. Well, do y'all have anything else y'all want to? You're like, no. Anything undone for you, Commissioner Pittman or Commissioner Jones, that y'all want to talk about before we leave for tonight?
No, I just want to thank everybody for talking and communicating, working through these things. We'll get there. We're going to get there. We'll get a budget passed.
Well, and I was going through the budget so fast and everything, I was trying to get, like I say, general statements. I'll try to see if I can get him some more specific answers, because I didn't delve into it that deep. I saw things that added up to what I said tonight, but I need to go back and look for more specific stuff, even though I saw it before. I may not be thinking about it right now.
And one thing I want to say is, this is just perspective on it, but I think the more that we can talk to each other and not just have it be right here during these meetings, I'll just say that I've had some pretty good conversations over the last 2 weeks or so with Commissioner Wortman, and I appreciate us having the open dialogue to have those conversations, because I do think that we can get a better understanding from each other about what we're looking for, and then come to a consensus on that and have these kind of productive meetings as we do that moving forward. So
Is this I have a question for the agenda for the 16th. Are we allowed to discuss that here, or is this solely budget? My question is, we never decide on who we're appointing to those boards, but it's showing under the consent agenda so it can't be on the consent agenda because
No.
we haven't, so do we just make a motion at the start of the meeting to pull those off, or is that?
You all discussed not discussing it at the meeting, so we'll go ahead and pull it off because they weren't discussed.
Okay.
So that was kind of not specifically said or made a motion on, but that's not a problem.
Yeah, I figured we would talk about those on the 16th. Commissioner Jones wasn't there, and then.
I'm back now.
Commissioner Shu's not here, so it makes it difficult to have that, but I think on the 16th, we'll be able to have those discussions better. And if in the meantime, y'all have any questions or concern about those as well, please feel free to reach out to each other, to me, whoever. Just, we're all here to try and make this go as smoothly as possible, so.
Well, like I told Commissioner Jones earlier, we're just glad he kept that airplane out of the water.
Exactly.
All right, anybody else? Okay, well, I will take a motion. Man, did I even make a motion to start this meeting? I don't even think I did. I just opened it. All right, well, I'll take a motion to adjourn for the evening. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you guys very much.